Okay, let's get this meeting started. It's 5:34, and I've written down who's present, and we'll go ahead and get started. Is Nate going to show up, Luke?
Yeah, he's just in the other room. He'll be here in a sec.
Okay. Probably down in a burrito or something good like that.
We just wolfed down a couple burritos. You are 100% accurate. True.
The Burrito Brothers strike again.
Guilty
Okay.
as charged.
Okay, well, we do have some at least one new face, and so we'll do introductions and virtual meeting rules. I think everybody knows, but so Melissa, do you want to introduce yourself? She's here for a later topic.
All right, just city recorder here to answer any questions.
Yeah.
You guys have been having, so.
Yeah, that's Melissa Hudula, and I asked her to join us when we talk about the Forest Lands Commission role and rules and whatnot. And Aliana Darrow.
She's from the paper.
Okay, well, maybe during the public, she might have something to say. And we all know Charisse. And do you want to introduce yourselves for Melissa's sake? So I'll go with me first. I'm the chair of the Forest Lands Commission. My name's Priscilla Franco. John Owen.
I'm John Owen, and I'm the newest member of the Forest Lands Commission, retired Forest Service.
John Williams.
Hi, I've been on the commission for the last 10 years, and I have studied physical geography, but I'm an education and computer software person by trade.
And Luke and Nate.
Luke Brandy, Commissioner, Professional Forester.
Nathan Lewis, been on the commission for about almost 6 years. Grew up here and had a first career in wildland fire.
And Frank.
Frank Betlajewski, retired federal employee, BLM and Forest Service, Natural Resource Management.
Marty.
Hi, I'm Marty Main. I'm a consulting forester, and I've worked with the city for many years in the projects here that we're talking about.
All right, and you know Chris. And then we have Aliana's from the paper, local paper, and Charisse is a member of the public who attends almost all of our meetings, if not all of them. I can't remember one she's missed in a long time. So our next thing is to have the approval of the minutes. And Luke took the minutes last time. I think everybody had a chance to read them. And I'll apologize in advance. You know, when I was looking at them, I was self-serving and wanting to make sure that we captured the decisions that were made. So self-serving and that the chair, that's what I was responsible for. So I zeroed right in on that, and that was captured, and I didn't look any further. And I have not had time to go through all the notes. But if anybody else has, what do you think? Did anybody look at the notes?
Well, they were the best darn notes ever written. self-described, I guess.
Yeah, that was a self-described. I have to say, there were some things in that that were not actually said. And was it was entertaining, and that is for sure. But for our official minutes, we probably do need to stick to what was actually said. And again, I couldn't tell you line by line what that was. So that's about all I have to say about that. So
I'll motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I'll second.
Nate seconded.
Yeah, well, I'm on the understanding that our minutes are still this video recorded session. But
That's it.
these are those were our notes, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If you remember, before the pandemic and before we started recording notes, the recordings, well, we understood them to be sufficient. And then when I talked to Melissa several months ago, I'd heard that other commissions do actually take notes and that we should be taking notes. And so a few months ago, we said we should take notes. So we would have a written copy that would be of our official notes. And then we have the recording for any question. But as you can imagine, the recordings are pretty cumbersome to go through in their entirety. So what do we do with that? And Melissa, maybe you could answer the question of how the
Yes.
notes fit in.
I just wanted to clarify, so since you are videotaping or taking audio, action minutes need to be done, which is making sure you have who is present in all motions when the meeting is adjourned. Very basic if you have the audio, but there should be something in writing.
Okay. So that's what I understood.
Okay.
I think that helps clear it up because we don't need a verbatim running conversation of who said what. It's just who is there, the times, motions, votes, and the end of the meeting.
Yes, we are not court reporters.
No.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's not court reporting. So we don't have to capture what's verbatim. It's, if you're a really fast and really good note taker, you can. But I would say it's probably not cool to talk about what was in your head because that's not a part of the official meeting.
But it will be on recording, so.
But it would be on, well, but if it's in your head, it's not on the recording either.
No, but
That's the point I'm trying to make. So what do we do with that?
Well, let's just make sure that Luke's notes from last time have those essential items. And then the over and above is just over and above. And from now on, we just have to make sure to capture the minimum amount required.
Okay, and I'm the note taker today. So I'm going to capture that we had this discussion about notes. Is there a motion to approve them or not approve them or what?
There was a motion and a second to approve them. I just think there wasn't a vote.
Okay, so should we vote to approve the minutes? All in favor? Okay. And nobody opposed. And also I'll make note that Leslie not here. Okay. So, public forum, if anybody from the public has anything they would like to say.
No.
Okay. Then adjustments to the agenda. I only want to adjust that after the chair selection will do the Forest Lands Commission role and council liaison, so that Melissa doesn't have to sit through everything. So we'll just change that order of new business B and C. And other than that, then we'll go to ongoing business, and that is the draft addendum and schedule study session, and that is Chris, I believe.
Yeah, I'll kick this off, and then Sil, you can chime in as needed. So obviously, folks don't have a draft of the forest plan addendum for climate change in anybody's hot little hands. I had said at a previous meeting that I would have it for this meeting, though in a conversation after the last meeting, Sil and I talked, and she made a good point that it would be a lot better to have that discussion in a study session format rather than taking up a lot of time in our business meeting to go through a draft of the forest plan addendum. So we decided to make that happen, and which gave me a little more time to get that out. And I've been working on it, so I will be happy to share it soon in anticipation of going over the details in a study session. The question being, when can that study session happen? Schedules are challenging. I'm going to be out of town for spring break the 21st through the 30th of this month. And assuming that folks want to have the draft at least a week beforehand to read it over and have things to discuss about it for the meeting. So perhaps looking at the calendar, the first week of April might be a potential candidate. April 5th is a Tuesday, the week before our next business meeting. Would that work for folks?
I think it works for me. Chris, is there, so that's assuming you'll have that out before you leave or during while you're gone?
Yeah, before I leave. I'm not taking it on vacation with me.
Yeah.
So it will be in everybody's inbox before the 21st.
Okay. Is there anybody that does not work for? And well, I guess I should go back. Are we looking at during the day, during the evening, same time slot, same amount of time?
Yeah, that's up to everybody. I think we'll need a full couple hours to really go through it, because this is the last chance to make comments on all of the sections that you all reviewed and worked on and made suggestions. And to see it all in one place, I think it will bring up some good discussions.
Okay, so it's the final draft. It's what we're looking at. And so again, anybody have any comments about the amount of time you would like to have or you'd like to see? I mean, I guess I would say, given people's propensity to talk when presented with a single comment, it seems to me 2 hours probably isn't enough, but I think it's a good start. I think it's certainly plenty to do all at once, and we may, you know, have to schedule another one, but that's a good start. John Owen,
Yeah, I would propose then 5 to 7 on that date, April 5th.
5 PM to 7 PM.
Yeah.
April 5th. So that is, then that's a week before our April meeting, which will be April 12th.
Right.
I can't make that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Do you, is it just that one day, or is there another time you'd like to suggest where you can make it?
Yeah, my schedule is probably kind of the opposite of most of you. I can meet almost any time, any day during the day. And my evenings have different, especially that first week, but I could meet Monday night, Wednesday night, or Thursday night that week. Just not Tuesday night or Friday night.
We just got a note from Luke that he's out that whole first week. I think that's what you said, right, Luke?
Oh,
Right.
thank you for seeing that.
Yeah.
So that first week of April, Luke should probably be there. Then that puts us to
The next week.
the next week of April of the 11th, 13th, or 14th.
What
John
about,
Owen.
what if we met with the work group on the normal day we would meet for the commission and then shift the commission date?
Commission dates are kind of written in stone because that's the normal second Tuesday for this commission, so it doesn't conflict with other commissions.
All right.
Well, let me ask the group this. Is there anybody that you know, like that does, it's everybody like needing to be there, you know, like if we'd be making a date without even knowing of Leslie's availability. I think it would be great if everybody could come, if we could find a day with everybody, but that's hard. Maybe we should send out a doodle poll.
Just out of curiosity, would the 5th work for folk? I mean, I'm sorry, the 11th work? Similar to what city council does. They have study session before the day before the business meeting.
But Luke won't be available, he said.
Yeah, well,
No,
on the
that was the
11th,
previous week,
on the 11th, Luke is available.
right?
Okay,
I could do the 11th. Again, you can't speak for Leslie, so let's hold the 11th and still wait till she gets back.
Okay.
are we going to make it the same time as the commission meetings, or are we going to make it earlier, or what? I don't know what time Leslie's schedule is usually pretty tight as well, as I recall, so
Yeah,
I don't know. 5:30 is okay. If that's gonna meet everyone else's.
well, why don't you make a motion and somebody second it, and we'll agree to that tentatively. Or let's just agree to it tentatively, and then when Leslie gets back, we'll check in with her.
Okay.
She's in the backcountry in the Wallowa Mountains this week, so we can't exactly send her an email. So yeah, she was out there in the snow and the storm and everything in a yurt.
Okay, I'll motion that we have a Forest Lands Commission study session on April 11th at 5:30 PM.
Tentative.
Tentatively.
Okay. Do we have a second? John Owen seconds that. All in favor? Okay, April 11th. Study session. And the final draft, you'll have 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks to have read it. So I hope everybody is prepared by the time we meet. It would be really nice if everybody was prepared by the time we met. And even to the point of knowing what your comments are going to be. And of course, we'll generate more while we're talking. Okay. So the next thing is chair selection. I've been the chair for a year now, and Frank's been vice chair. Well, it will be as of April. Last April was my first time, I think. Might have been May, but anyways, we need a new chair.
Whose turn is it?
I don't know if there's turns.
I think we've all done it except for John Owen, correct? Oh, and Leslie. We can nominate Leslie since she's not here.
I'm not sure we can. Frank's the vice chair. And so I guess he would get it if I step down. I do want to step down as chair. Now that I've got that new van. So Frank, what do you have to say?
No,
No, as in you don't want to be chair. You better nominate somebody then.
I like John Owen. What does John think?
Okay, John's got something to say.
No,
No.
no. No. Not gonna happen now.
Okay. Luke,
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of time to commit, but I didn't when I did it last year as well. So if no one had objections to how I did it that previous year, I'd be willing to do it again. But I will not be holding the reins like Sil did this last 6 months.
that might be a good thing.
Quite so tightly. That's
That
not
might
a
be a
bad,
good thing.
not a bad call.
Nate.
Yeah. So I guess I'd be willing to do it.
I second.
So I guess we could vote on that one. Luke just seconded that. All in favor? Aye.
Let's
Frank,
ask
what do you think?
Leslie to be the vice.
Well, again, I don't know that I would assume she'd be okay with that, but I can't say, I can't speak for her. Frank, you don't have to step down as vice chair. And so you could stay on as vice chair. That's who I would nominate. Is Frank for vice chair.
I was gonna say, I'd be willing to throw my hat in the ring for vice, maybe give Leslie right of first refusal, and then I'd be willing to do it if she doesn't want it.
Okay. Looks like John Williams seconded that first. And so all in favor? Okay. Nate.
Thanks, Luke and Nate.
Nate is chair, the Burrito Brothers in the lead.
Now they're gonna have to turn their mics on.
I know, yeah. But I am making note if Leslie doesn't want it. Okay, so I wanted to talk a bit, I know I've talked a bit about the Forest Lands Commission role, but I wanted to get into it just a little bit more. And Chris, I don't know if you can share screen. Do I need to click on my green first?
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
just
just-
gonna go, well, or what I'm gonna do is go to the Ashland Municipal Code. So even you could do that if you wanted,
Right.
because that's all I was gonna do is just go to that page, Ashland Municipal Code and then Forest Lands Commission.
All right, let me pull it up.
So while Chris is doing that, I just wanted everybody to actually get this and make a note of it. That our commission is established under municipal codes along with, other things like building codes and other things. And so Chris just brought up the page, and if you want to look at this yourself, if you go to the City of Ashland's homepage, and there's a little magnifying glass that allows you to search Ashland Municipal Code. And then within that, off to the left, there's the various commissions and other things, but the Forest Lands Commission has its own page and sections in the code. And so what Chris pulled up here is sort of the introduction to each section. There's more detail if you go into that chapter, but the first one is our purpose, and it talks about being established in February of 1993, and looks like the city codified that in 2010. That's under the purpose section. And I'm just going to read it. It says, has at its primary purpose the protection and enhancement of conditions of late succession and old growth forest ecosystems on city-owned forest lands to provide high quality water for domestic supply. The roles and responsibility of the Forest Lands Commission were first established in 1993. And that coincides with that original forest plan. And that's the stated purpose. And we probably evolved a little bit since then, but that's what's in the purpose. And I wouldn't say we've changed, but I mean evolution by the type of wording that's used and things like that. So then there's established membership. which talks about 7 voting members, including a representative from Ashland Parks and Commission. Right now, that's Leslie. And then the commission may also consist of certain non-voting ex officio members. That means, you know, they're non-voting, and including a representative from the Ashland Ranger District. Well, there is no more Ashland Ranger District. It's combined with Applegate. And I can't even tell you the name of that district, but anyways, so we could have a representative by the Forest Service. My guess is, you know, because of, you know, overtime and staffing, they're probably just really don't have the time, but we know they're in connection with Chris. We could also have a representative of the Oregon Department of Forestry. We could have a member of City Council, which this is new, was Steph Steppinger, and is now Julie Akins, our mayor. She's now our City Council liaison, and she's not here tonight, though she was invited. I tried to connect with her over the weekend. We played telephone tag a little bit. But we never actually connected. So I've yet to talk to Julie in person, but she's our City Council liaison. And Sharice just put a note that says that under that section, she could be an ex officio member. I think because of her role in the Wildfire Safety Commission. And I think I didn't read your, it's not, she's saying that she doesn't see that this option is excluded in the language. So we have often had liaisons from the Wildfire Safety Commission. As well as we have had representation, ex officio membership on the Wildfire Safety Commission, you know, from our commission. So it's also the Director of Public Works. And I think, and then the Director of Community Development, Fire Chief, Police Chief, Parks and Recreation Director, or their designees. I think that's a role that Jason Minica fills often. And I also think that when you get into more details on this membership, at one time, this commission had student ex officio members, one from SOU and one from Ashland High School. And those of you that have been around for longer than I may be more familiar with that. And so I think that's all something good to consider, and we can come back to that in just a minute, but I just want to finish with the powers and duties, which are more obvious and stated you know, in a more obvious place on the city's website. And that is, you know, call our powers and duties. You know, we've also called it the charter. But, and it is to develop forest management plans for the city of Ashland, and to provide, and adopted by the city of Ashland in June 1992. Now, that was when this was started. It doesn't say anything about subsequent plans, but like I said, I think this is, we've evolved since this is written, and maybe we need to update that to include amendments and addendums, things like that, if that's what the city wants. To provide integrated interdisciplinary direction and oversight for the development of forest ecosystem management plans and related activities in the Ashland watershed. So there you go. It might not be the forest plan, but it's management plans. And so I think that is what we're doing is all within our purview of what's been outlined. To develop a strong community volunteer program to assist in implementation of the Ashland Forest Plan. We haven't done that since I've been around, but I would guess that it's been done in the past and we could do it again in the future. To submit recommendations to the city council regarding forest management. And we've done this mostly since I've been around regarding trails, appropriateness of trail locations. And then there was one that was generated some public interest about use of the trails, whether that be horseback riders and or bicycles. And we made a recommendation to city council and they acted on that. That was a few years ago. And we are to ensure the plans integrate the forest management needs and concerns of the city and private landowners in the wildland urban interface. And we're to promote public knowledge and acceptance of the Ashland Forest Plan programs. And that was added in 2010. So we do have a big responsibility, and you know, I think we're doing that, and I think it's good to be reminded. And I think it also shows that we could do more, and we wouldn't be overstepping what the city is asking of us. Melissa, do you have anything to add? Well, go ahead, Melissa.
I really don't. I just hope that your liaison, the only thing, that's who you get everything to council with. So hopefully you can get in contact and make more of a connection. I know this is all new though.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the mayor is a busy person. So, you know, we'll just try to stay in communication with her, and if she sees something in particular, she can reach out to us, and we'll try to make it work.
And you can always email and all of council for recommendations that you want or just questions. And I'm always here to help too. So,
Great.
you know.
Does anybody have any questions about any of this, or questions for Melissa while she's here?
Fine then. Good day.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks for clarifying, Melissa.
Yes, have a good night. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
I think, you know, this idea, the two things that I think, you know, that struck me in particular about missing was our volunteer program. And I recognize we've been, you know, we've been hampered by the pandemic. And I can think of many ways we could use volunteers, maybe that even haven't been before, like for, you know, note taking or facilitation even. You know, there's a lot of professionals in this town that I would like to recruit that from just an administration point. But then again, you know, I won't be chair, so we'll leave that up to the chair. But and then, so the volunteer part was one thing that I think we could step up and do more of. And then the part about our ex officio members. And I'd like to hear what other people think about that as far as, you know, a lot of people are seeing an overlap between us and the Wildfire Safety Commission is one. And while we're working on this climate adaptation, I could see having an ex officio member from one of the one of the, climate commissions, which I'm not even fully aware of what's all out there. And I was on a group that was supposed to bring all that together, but it kind of fell apart under questions about how they were meeting and whatnot. So I can't say, but those are two things. And then if I think about planning, just the word planning, I go, how does this fit? How does our plan fit in with other city plans? We have the Lithia Park master plan, which we obviously have a lot of overlap with. And but at the same time, we have an ex officio member that is with the parks. So does anybody else have any thoughts about that? And I would invite you, Sharice, to talk about that too. I'll also make note that that the chair does have the prerogative to call on members of the public, and they're not limited to just the public forum. So when there is a public forum, it's right that they get 5 minutes each, but if I see there's a member of the public that has something that they could to say about the subject at hand, I can call on them. So, Sharice.
I'm sorry, what exactly would you like me to comment on? What the other,
That you being a ex officio member, or even not necessarily you, but somebody from the Wildfire Safety Commission as an ex officio member, or we've often called them commission liaisons.
it's my understanding on other commissions that there's often a time block for other commission representatives to speak. That's something of a different animal than being an ex officio member. So that's something that I would like to make sure is clarified, because an ex officio member, as I would interpret it, and you can correct me on this, would be able to participate in dialogue and conversations, help provide information, participate fully but not vote. And I don't know if that's actually the case or not. But that's the first I heard of that possibility when I read that statement in the code.
Okay, well that I don't know. That's a good one that maybe we should have asked a little bit more of when Melissa was there, and I can follow up. But certainly the liaisons that get some time to talk about their work and the overlap of their work. We've done it before, and
Yes,
and not the too
I
distant.
think that's a good idea.
And not the too distant past.
The idea of having the climate outreach and conservation commission, I'm all for cross-pollination of ideas so that we aren't siloed. So it makes sense to me to invite other commission representatives, not necessarily the chairs, but people who are interested in the subject matter, to be regular participants within other commissions. I mean, I just think that's a great, healthy way of sharing information, generating events that benefit multiple commissions, things like that. But the second thing I was talking about has to do with actually having conversations within the commission rather than just reporting out and exploring opportunities.
Okay, can you tell me the name again of the climate?
Well, there's climate commissions. One is the Climate Policy Commission. And the other is the Climate Outreach and Conservation Commission, something like that. And the two roles differ substantially, or at least they've been trying to work out their differences. But the Climate Outreach Commission, Outreach and Education Commission, is focused on education. whereas the Policy Commission is trying to establish policy. So if you were to, for example, look at the work you're doing to create a climate adaptation plan and educate others about it, there's a logical crosswalk there with both commissions. And then the Wildfire Safety Commission has the potential to be a partner, but I think less so than those other climate commissions. I don't know if Chris might disagree on that, but I'm perfectly willing to sit in as a liaison on the Wildfire Safety Commission, because we are trying to, in this last 6-month period, we've been talking about integrating climate change more into our conversations and programs. We just haven't yet formulated what that looks like.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts about this the idea of cross-pollination with the other commissions?
I would ask Melissa, if you're going to talk to her, if the Forest Lands Commission charter needs to be changed in any way to allow other commissions to be ex officio members, because Wildfire Commission didn't exist when the last time that was written into the municipal code on the forest lands side, or if it even matters. I have no idea, but to pave the way for somebody else to from another commission to be an ex officio member, or however you want it to be, I would just ask the question of how that needs to happen and if it needs to change the municipal code language or not.
Okay, how about how do you see that as different than the liaison that that, for example, that I played on wildfire safety, and in our case, both Kent Romney and Sharice and somebody else from the Wildfire Safety Commission, they used to trade up months.
I think we could still play that role, but that's what I'm saying. The idea of having a set time, like on the tree commission, they set time aside for other commissions to speak.
So we would put that in ongoing business, you say?
Right. It would be a regular part of the agenda to essentially share information. And that's one way of looking at it. And then one person gets designated. Right now, I'm actually designated by the Wildfire Safety Commission to regularly attend these meetings.
Okay.
So step in and choose to do that, but I've accepted that responsibility.
Right. Okay. Well,
can I add one other thing? I noticed in that language, which Chris pointed out, you should talk to Melissa about. It said ex officio members can be or can include. It didn't say are only.
yes.
It was an open-ended statement.
Right. Yeah, I think the fact that we had students at one time would be an example of that. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? I personally always think cross-pollination is good. And it's a good eye-opener for any of us to go to any of the commission meetings to see the differences in how they operate and what they're doing.
I totally agree.
Okay, well, I think we'll just leave it as that. I'll do a little bit of homework and I'll try to get back. I'll talk with Chris and then get back to the other commissions, the two that were mentioned, or the three that were mentioned, climate outreach and education, and then climate policy, and then wildfire safety. I'll get clarification on that. And And then the next time we meet, we can talk about who of us wants to go on those other commissions. And then prior to the April meetings of those other groups.
And the way it works for us, just to help you make this decision,
Okay,
Wildfire Safety Commission, we recognize that it was really important to have representation on the tree commission. Because
yeah,
new trees that create greater fire hazard is a concern. So COVID kind of threw this out the window for a while, but we would try to rotate each month who was going to attend the climate or the tree commission meeting. So some of it is interest driven by the individuals on the commissions, but it's in the right direction. It evolved into the point where one of the fire staff would be the regular attendees on the tree commission, but I don't know why that occurred. It really helped to be able to go to, as a commissioner on one commission, to go to the tree commission and listen to their business and the proposed actions by individuals of the public and how they dealt with them. And our role theoretically was to point out when there were conflicts with wildfire mitigation rules or expectations, principles. So that's the kind of thing that is tangible, that if you think about as a Forest Lands Commission, what particular area might you want to focus on? There might be other commissions, but clearly the climate commissions are connected right now with what you're doing.
right. I mean, I could see a lot of things like, we're concerned about, for instance, invasive species on our forest lands. And those invasive species, really, the majority of them are coming from the parks or in towns in people's landscapes. So there's not much we can do. I mean, there's a lot we can do to manage invasive species that comes in on equipment or comes in, horse poop or whatever. But, that's really minor compared to the invasive species that have come from, the parks and from people's landscaping, things like Scotch broom and, blackberry or, what's that, periwinkle, that's going all over the park and things like that. So I could see a good reason to.
Well, here's another example. I'm currently on the landscaping working group of the Wildfire Safety Commission.
Uh-huh.
And have done a massive research project on what are theoretically called fire-resistant plants. I've researched 680 species and done a complete review of the Ashland FireWise plants list to identify issues. And I'm now going to be working with fire staff to develop a new list that might change the prohibited plant list for the city. And I'm pushing very hard, for example, to take a harder look at invasives.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good example. So anyways, that I think that's good, and we will look into it, and I'll have more information in April that I'll present to the new chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I hate to dominate, but the next thing that I wanted to do was just do a quick introduction to forest planning. And in this case, Chris, looking at the time, it's 6:30. And I'm gonna save that because I think the defining refugia talk that Frank was going to do. And then the Krausen tree removal project, which is really important because it's going to be happening very soon. And if we have time, I'll get into my little professorial hat and do introduction to forest planning, which really won't take long, but I don't want to miss the refugia and the Krausen tree removal. And I'll try to keep those along because as we get ready to go into the draft forest plan, I think it would be good, the draft forest plan amendment addendum, it would be good to do that. So Frank, why don't you go ahead with refugia?
Okay, thanks, Sil. This is 25 minutes, and I have a stopwatch here that I'll be paying attention to. I'm going to be doing about 12, 13 minutes, and then the rest is going to be the commissioners. I'd like to hear what their response is. I'd like to go directly to the commissioners and hear from them first. And if we have time, Chris and Marty, of course, could get in. So can I just hit the share screen, Chris? And here we go. So refugia, under the current forest plan, we have no definition for refugia. It's undefined. But we
Hey,
do-
Frank, the screen share is not working. There we go.
All right. Is that still good?
Great.
Okay. So anyway, refugia, current forest plan, undefined. But we do say we're going to manage for refugia in the riparian management areas only, a maximum of 50 acres total for all the different patches of refugia. And as of right now, we've never formally designated a refugia acre under the current forest plan. We have some objectives for the refugia where we're going to manage for fire intolerant species, heavier fuel loadings, and understory diversity. Under the current plan amendment, the draft is that we manage all of the city lands and the greater Ashland watershed as a single refugium, one patch. So refugium is undefined at this point. The Ashland refugium, the city refugium would be 1,150 acres. The larger Ashland watershed would be the 1,150 acres plus the Forest Service, 14,000 acres. And the recommendation right now, which is draft, says we should recommend the city council that the Forest Service should manage their acreage in the watershed as a single patch, about 14,000 acres. The city, 1,150 acres, and the Forest Service, 14,000 acres, will be combined as a one single refugium patch. And right now, we don't have any objectives for what's going to happen in that refugium. So this just in, technical report 995. Thanks, Luke, for sending this thing out. This is going to be the go-to publication for managing for climate change. Some folks here that we know. One thing I noticed is that they don't seem to put photos in these things anymore. Everything is charts and graphs and maps, but not too many actual photos. That was just one thing I noticed in there. Anyway, I started looking at it after Luke sent it out, and I wonder if there was anything in there concerning refugia, and there is. So the first question is, refugia for what? And they kind of broke it down in a number of different ways, but I categorized it as fish refugia, vegetation refugia, which is actually more structural, but I'm calling it veg, and then wildlife refugia. So those are the three sort of types of refugia that they're covering. So fish refugia. Over here, does my pointer show up on the screen? Anybody? My pointer?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we can see it.
Okay, so the Palmer Creek over here, I believe this is out in the Applegate. And what I just wanted to point out is this debris jam down here in the creek. This is refugia. It's hiding cover. And behind it, if you're on an anadromous fish stream and you have gravels pile up, it's a good place for spawning salmon and steelhead. So this is in-channel refugia. It's relatively small, 1/10 of an acre, 1/4 of an acre, something like that. Over here on the right, we have another kind of fish refugia. And this is Ashland Creek, all the way going up here. This is from roughly somewhere in the 1880s. And it's above the confluence of Stewart, now known as Bear Creek. And best I can tell is this is somewhere where the dog park is right now. And we talked a little bit in the past about how refugia along streams, the vegetation along streams is going to be different from the vegetation in the uplands. And this is the most dramatic example I could find of that. So you can pretty clearly see there's a riparian forest that runs along the stream. And that's another kind of refugia. They're both fish refugia. This one over here is in the channel. This one over here is in the upland. So here's the channel stuff. Here's the upland stuff, but it's all fish refugia. And the basic idea is to remove barriers to fish movement and restore stream structure and function. Vegetation refugia. Now this is the stuff I normally think about. These patches that don't burn up in the fire when I think about persistent fire refugia. But one of the slides that's been making the rounds these days is this one from the bootleg fire. And shout out to Kerry Metlin. He sends me stuff every once in a while. And this is one of his slides. But you can see over here where the thinning is only done, we have red crowns on the trees. Over here on the right, no treatment at all, it's toast. But the piece in here where the thinning and the prescribed fire was done together seems to have survived fairly well. And so the concept is, can we use active management to create refugia or maintain refugia? And this looks kind of like a positive thing here. So manipulate veg characteristics, including structure and fuel loading to maintain or enhance refugia. Wildlife refugia, different kinds. So high severity fires can increase fragmentation and isolation of old forest patches. And there's our friend Spotty. Spotted owls, I forget exactly, but the core areas are like 600 acres. They're pretty big. So for an owl, you might be looking at hundreds of acres at a time for their kind of refugia and their kind of habitat. This is a Del Norte salamander, and I don't know if we have any on city ownership, but they're in the area, they're in the neighborhood. This is a little bit different. So even though we will have types of refugia, this is a tiny one. One of the things I looked at was a Del Norte salamander might spend its entire life on 8 square meters of forest, and that is tiny. So we go from refugia for an owl, which might be something like 600 acres, and this thing here maybe was like, 8 meters. It's not very big at all. So again, we're looking at a question of scale. So we've got the different kinds of refugia. We've got the fish, the veg, the wildlife. And so refugia from what? We've been talking about fires mostly. Insects have come online now as a topic, and drought is going to be an issue as well. And so this particular article, they break it out into fire, drought, and insects, and just that refugia are places that are disturbed less severely or less frequently, and that's what we're going to call disturbance refugia. Disturbances can overlap and influence destruction and function of refugia. So you can have one fire and then a second fire burns on top of it, or maybe have an insect outbreak, fire burns on top of that, and it all comes together. And what you end up with is, that whatever refugia is left out there. So anyway, refugia from what? And in the paper, this is right out of it. So fire refugia, just to give you an idea, and I have a few traits on fire refugia, things like large conifer trees are resistant, stuff that most people are familiar with. Drought, here we go. That's what we're going to be looking at. Again, they got some of the basic characteristics. Small trees of both types are resistant. That's hardwoods and conifers, by the way. That's what that's showing down here. And insects, variable, widespread and variable. The interesting one here is the non-host broadleaf trees are resistant. So as the conifers start to disappear, we may see a shift over into hardwoods because they can survive. So we've got the 3 kinds of refugia for fish, refugia for veg, refugia for wildlife. We got disturbance, so we got fire, we got drought, we got insects. And you put them all together, and here's our refugia and disturbance. We got 9 different kinds. So refugia type, fish, wildlife, veg, disturbance type, fire, drought, and insects. And so fish and fire Refugia for fish, disturbance type fire, gives us refugia type fish fire. Refugia type fish, disturbance type drought, gives us refugia type fish and drought. And you get the idea of the different ones here. So I got a couple more slides and then we'll head over to the commission. There was an Oregon State University Zoom conference held last week about the state of forest health in Oregon. I sat in on that. And one of the objectives, or one of the papers that was given last, was by a silviculturist, and he was talking about how to manage for climate change. And these were the objectives that he suggested: reducing patch size, reducing connectivity, and increasing heterogeneity, which is, you know, differences in the landscape. Well, he's from Corvallis, and they don't have the kinds of vegetation perhaps that we're looking at, where we have all these different vegetation types across the landscape. So even though we've got issues here with climate change and insect activity and fires, we may be a little better suited than some other places to manage for smaller habitat types, because we've got more to work from to start with. So possibly we might be in better shape in some other places. Mostly what I've talked about, or pretty much everything I've talked about, has been preservation of existing refugia. I'd like to talk a little bit about using active management to create new habitat. This is Croson Reservoir 2, which is where we had our hike the other day. And there's no pictures out here pre-treatment, but you can see the manzanita that's been cut all through here and back in here. And this is what it looks like. And it's really dark and nasty down in there. If you've ever had the opportunity to crawl through a manzanita patch, it's pretty ugly in there, but also not much grows underneath it. And so 30 years ago, it's unlikely, well, we don't know for sure, but it's possible with the heavy manzanita cover, something like a Horkelia, the three-tooth Horkelia here, didn't exist on this site. Don't know that for a fact, but it's there now. And the hypothesis, at least, is that it moved in from the power line, which is not real far from here. This is a relatively rare plant. We're looking at the northernmost extent of its range, quite possibly. This population has not been mapped yet. I've got it on GPS, and I'm going to see what we need to do to record it. And the point of this whole thing is that this thing used to be a manzanita patch. We did a bunch of work in here. Horkelia likes disturbance. We created habitat for the Horkelia, and it seems to have occupied this. And so the short part is create growing space, and photosynthesis happens. Something will move into that site. The Horkelia is in a sagebrush community in California, so I'm curious if we're going to get any sagebrush coming in on this site too. So one more thing, this is for Chris. He's going to talk about dying trees here in a minute. One of the things they talked about at that conference was white oak and the conifer mortality in white oak. And this is going up and down Western Oregon. And the one that got my attention was a presentation that was done from Salem. And they were talking about conifer mortality on these white oak sites where the conifers were encroaching. And after the heat came in last year, the conifers are all dying. Interestingly enough, the conifers that are dying are Western red cedar, which will give you an idea of some other stuff that white oak can grow with. But the reason it's in there is that if you've got white oak in the overstory, that's an indicator of a harsh site. And I'd be real interested to see how many conifers are surviving in these white oak areas. And so this is just a quick GIS run off the website. And all these little green patches you see here are areas with white oak in the overstory. There's 21 units, there's about 50 acres of them. And these would be candidates for additional conifer mortality based on what people have seen in the last couple of years. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about GIS. We talk about pods sometimes, and that's a nice program, but there's lots and lots of things you can do in GIS, one of which is called nearest neighbor analysis. It's similar to this, but you would also get your average patch size, which is this thing here, but it would give you the distances. And you can start playing around on the landscape saying, do I need all these oaks? Should they be this far apart? What happens if I remove them? So there's things you can do. And this is sort of an underutilized aspect of our management. If we're going to do planning, GIS might be a useful tool as we move ahead. So that's everything that I've got. And I'm done, and I'd like to turn it over, sorry, to the commission now. And Chris, what do I need to do to put this thing back up?
So Frank, after you've looked at all this stuff, what is your
Hang on a second.
suggestion?
Let's get rid of all this first. And I'll
Okay.
get to you, John. Chris, can we get back to the regular screen somehow, or is it just me?
You just need to go to the screen that you're sharing on your computer, and there should be a little thing at the bottom that says stop sharing.
All righty. Let me see if I can find that.
I think it's in the green box.
In which
It-
one?
I think
It
it's
might not-
red.
Yeah, it's red. It's not with the green share.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
There we
go.
go.
okay.
Okay, John, be my guest. You can go first. We'll go backwards in the alphabet today. We'll start with John. Billy. You got a couple of minutes, John, but let's make sure everybody gets a chance to chat. What do you got?
Well, I just knowing you, after looking at all this, what do you think we should do vis-a-vis the forest plan? Based on the fact that we don't have this defined, should we change anything? Do you think because of climate change, we need to revisit the whole issue and maybe break up our watershed into different refugia?
If you remember that slide from the Applegate, we've got all those distinct veg types out there already, and we're starting to look at smaller patch sizes and more patch sizes.
Yeah.
So we want to have variability across the landscape, but I don't want to take up your time. So
Okay. Yeah. That was just my comment, or my question, since you're, arguably one of the best experts here in all this. So.
Okay, well, thanks for that. John Owen.
You're still muted. Okay, there you go.
Excellent presentation, Frank. And I do think that it's, in terms of your question, John, as to how to approach it in the amendment, I think if we're looking at refugium as a model and the actions we take to manage the forest to emulate those patches that are surviving in the face of the onslaught of climate change, then that becomes sort of the model that we can present in the amendment. But all of the information that will be used to determine the what activities we need to do on the forest, those would be, we would go to the reference materials in the chapters that I see. I assume that those will be appendices, and they will provide the basis for evaluating the actions we take in the context of that model, and give us that comparative sort of analysis that I think Frank's presentation has really shown the validity of that. So that's really all I have to offer.
Thanks, John. Nate, you're up.
Hey, thanks, Frank. That was great. I really enjoyed it. One just follow-up I had,
How about Nate? Nate's next.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm going.
Okay.
You're last.
Nate's, yeah, I should,
Is that?
I'm the second in command. I didn't realize it was Nate's turn. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, Frank, hold on me,
Oh.
sir. No. Yeah, Frank, I thank you so much for that. That does clarify things to me, although it also makes it just as muddy and mucky as it was before, which the real trick is, what do you prioritize, right? And that's kind of the battle between all these chapters saying, hey, we're losing the battle on our soil stability, so we need to get more vegetation on the ground. Then we're saying, hey, we live in a community that's probably gonna have more fire, so we need to manage for that, and that's kind of contradictory. So again, it doesn't totally help us, I think, exactly prioritize but it's a really cool kind of schematic for identifying areas that we are prioritizing, even if they're small microclimates. So I think it seems like this is exactly what we've been doing. Someone's just created a really nice, paradigm for it a little bit, just like that chart was really helpful. And I think, so thank you for that presentation. I think that was really cool.
Phil, you're next anyway, so go.
Oh,
Are you done there, Nate? Did I get you?
yep.
Okay. Phil, you're up.
Well, Luke, I think, is next.
No, Franco was before Brandy.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, first of all, that was really great. Some things like that I've noted, like the dramatic pictures of the early Ashland watershed, kind of, that in itself is incredible. How much the forest has grown back from where it was. And then also the bootleg fire, the difference between treating and burning or thinning and burning versus just thinning, and what a difference that made, and doing nothing, what a difference that made. So that was really good. I really liked your table for simplification. I'm much more of a lumper than a splitter. So when that table that you showed with the types of refugia on one axis and the disturbance on the other really helps. And when we do get to a point of if we have to prioritize, because we must, in order to do things on the ground, we can't do it all at once. We have to prioritize. And I think that will be a really handy table. It might be oversimplified, but again, I think for the plan, a lot of what you said, like what Nate said, that it could confuse things, and to get in overly detailed in the plan, might be a tall order to ask for, in the short amount of time that we have, though it could be addressed in that we at least establish a priority and at least establish that we want these things. And I think it was important to note that there's different scales of refugia. I think it's important that the commission understands that, because we were throwing around, these ideas of refugia, it's great, but we weren't like really acknowledging whether we're talking about refugia for that little, amphibian versus, a spotted owl. Makes all the difference in the world. It's that it depends thing in forestry, that it depends on what you're talking about. So Frank is telling me to hurry up. So I think for the forest plan, it's a matter of prioritizing, and I'll only suggest that I'll quote a fisheries biologist that I know, and of course he's talking about fish, but he said it's all about the fish. That's sort of our canary in the coal mine. If we're taking care of the fish, we're probably taking care of everything else, and on a larger scale. So the difficult task will be how to prioritize. You've given us some good tools to do it, but we do need to at least have something to prioritize for management to know what to do next. That's all I have. Anybody else?
Luke, tell us where we messed up.
No, you're fine. I actually had more of a question. So when you showed the picture of the Horklia, the 3-leaf Horklia, so you were talking about refugia, but that was in an area that was disturbed by fire and human activity and all that. So I guess I wasn't sure where that really fit in. That almost seems to me less of a refugia issue than like a disturbance, unless you're going to say human disturbance management is a type of refugium inducing factor for these plants that don't want dense shrubs. So that's where you kind of lost me on that. And then in the beginning, were you saying that the entire watershed is a refugium? Because I had never understood it. I was picturing the refugia as the little stringers of timber that are less likely to burn, like in the draws.
You want me to respond to that?
I don't, if you want to, I don't know.
Yeah, sure,
We
sure.
could do a motion.
The Horkelia, the reason I brought that up, that is not refugia. Because right now we're focused on management to protect and preserve what's there. We have to start thinking about creating new habitats that these organisms can move into. And in this case, the Horkelia is such a great example because it probably wasn't there. No, it's not refugia, but the active management is to create new habitats. And what was your other question on the first part?
What, at some point I saw like 150,000 acre refugium, and that didn't make any sense to me. If you were putting that forward as a proposal, I disagree.
Oh, I'm not. That's our current, I disagree too, but that's our current draft that's going to city council, is that we want the Forest Service to manage the watershed as one patch, and the city's going to manage the city as one patch, and then we're going to put them both together. But that's as far as it's gotten, but that's in the draft right now. That's what we have. We have to fix that because I don't agree with it either.
Yeah, I guess my comment, I would just tie on to that and second what Sil said is, it seems to me that we should express it or define it as there are gradations of refugia at different scales for different things. And so unfortunately, it's going to be kind of a really squishy definition, but I just don't want to get locked into saying this is a refugium and then have it all burn or die in beetles. And so there's lots of little pieces at different scales, I guess, would be my comment.
Complete at all. So we're past time already. So I don't know what you guys want to do. I want to get to Chris because he's got his stuff to talk about too.
Well, it's a good jumping off point. Thank you, Frank. That's much needed. And I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. So-
Are we moving on to another topic? I'd like to add some stuff on refugia if possible. It could also wait for another time.
Yeah, I think if we could get to the Croson project, that would be great. Unless you've got something short.
Okay, I'll make it short. We have been managing for refugia for many, many years on city lands. It's just been the last several years where the term refugia has arrived as an important concept. Ours and professionally, the concept of refugia has been primarily disturbance refugia and largely related to fire, wildlife. Those have been a higher value in most situations, and more recently climate change. So, and we have maps in the 450 that show the refugia on the Windburn parcel that we've managed for. And we also have some for the lower watershed, but it deserves more of a conversation. I thought Frank did a great job on describing the range of possible refugia. That's
All
it.
right.
for me.
Good point. So you're talking about you're managing for refugia from disturbances rather than refugia for something.
It's hard to separate them.
Yeah,
but
it is.
We certainly have units almost from the inception that we have prioritized for limited or no treatment. In some cases we've treated, but it's primarily been conceptually for the same thing that we are today calling refugia. And they're mapped and in the 450.
Okay, Frank.
Yes to everything Marty said. The one point is that there's never been a formal designation by vote that this spot will be a refugia or this spot will be, so their management's occurring, but there's no formal designation. I'm done. Thank you.
And the thing that I'll add, just excuse me just a second there, Nate, is that I really appreciate this kind of conversation. And it's, I think, hopefully in the upcoming years that the Forest Lands Commission has these kind of conversations about the resource out there, because it's complex. Frank did a great job of showing you how complex just that term is. So really good, Frank.
I just wanted for just 1 second, just, yeah, the fact that we need to make sure we can field this refugia question well, because I think people are going to possibly glom onto the fact that refugia should be like unmanaged area. Whereas if you're doing fire suppression and unmanaged in an area, that is management. So the idea is like, you know, we don't want these like hands-off refugia to be bordering our city lands because of the fire potential danger and everything. So it's like, that's kind of where people might grab onto it. So I think it's just really good that we're defining this for ourselves, and also then to sort of be a little more defensible on some of those people who think non-management's the answer.
Good. Okay, John, one more time, but we're really running out of time to talk about
Yeah.
Crowson.
Yeah, I would just agree with the comments that have been made. The idea of refugia should not be seen as exclusive, that precludes any human activity. We're not trying to go back to the way it was. I know there are many who want to, but this is not a De La Salle thing, I don't think. And we need to use it as an objective that we want to expand that context, that concept of refugia, and use the identified refugium or various refugia in the forest as a way of saying, here's a model that nature has given us that we can expand on in our treatments of bringing human activity into it to reassert the more natural ecological progression of the unit, of the area. Anyway.
Okay,
And just to validate
Oh.
your point, Nate, there's
wait,
on city lands management, there's been both. There's been refugia that we actively manage to try to maintain them, but primarily have not. So we've done it both ways, and that's in the 450.
okay, let's go. There'll be more time.
Indeed, and I don't need a lot of time for the Crowson Reservoir description. We walked through there in the tour. Folks got to see the dead pines from Western pine beetle. Maybe folks have walked up there on their own and wandered through the area. About a week ago, I went in and put yellow paint on the clearly dead pines, and also posted signage at the trailhead describing what was going to happen, which is basically the same thing that's on the city website that I sent to you all. So folks have an opportunity as they're walking there over a 2-week period to read the signage, see that trees are marked for removal. Hopefully that raises some questions, and we're not going to surprise anybody when come the 14th, the trees start falling and getting removed from the area. So that's just part of the process of getting to the project, but also part of the social process, importantly, of getting folks aware that something is going to happen there, that there are dead trees. Actually, Aliana, who's on the meeting here from the Tribune, is writing a story about it. We talked about it today, and I sent her the press release and information that went out on the city website. Also Bert Etling of Ashland News is going to write something up on it as well. So trying to get that information out into the community so as not to surprise folks. I've already reached out to all the adjacent owners who could be impacted by traffic closures. The street will have to be closed for a few days during the day. Starting on the 14th, the trail will be closed as well. And the adjacent landowners who also have dead trees are participating. I've got one more to finally get nailed down this week. But one owner below actually has all her trees cut and prepped for logging. So it'll be a good coordinated multi-landowner project because we need to address beetles in trees across the landscape. And that's, unfortunately, we're addressing one spot. There are other spots. Parks Department is working on Lithia Hillside. They've already cut down quite a number of trees there. I think Jason was saying they had painted close to 150 trees. So, and a little bit bigger outbreak than what is happening at Croson. And then there's yet another spot that folks have brought to my attention that's over the top of Liberty and Beach streets. So not much I can do on that one, as that's private properties only and spread out over many different owners, not involving the city or parks. So that's kind of tricky. The one thing I will say about the work and the trees that are currently marked, if you go out there and look, you'll see trees that are not marked but have dead tops and or dying tops to varying degrees. Sometimes just 5 or 10% of the crown at the top is dying, sometimes 20% up to, or maybe even a little bit more that aren't marked, or kind of waiting to see what's going on with those trees, if they are turning browner over time from the top down, as I assume many of them probably will. But there is a slight chance that some of those trees, especially the larger ones, could be getting attacked by Ips beetles, which do only kill the top small diameter portion of the tree. And they might not be getting attacked by the Western pine beetle and killing the entire tree. We don't know for sure. We have, with Bill Shop, a former Forest Service entomologist who lives here in town, we've hacked into some of the bark and found Western pine beetle on trees that are not all browned out yet. And there's both larvae and overwintering adults in the trees that we found. So right now the indication is pointing strongly towards the trees that are not yet marked will probably have to come down. But Marty and I talked about it today, and also talked about it with Don Hammond, who's doing the logging, that we can wait on those. And at the end of the day, Monday, we'll cut one of them down and we'll do I don't know what you're going to call it. It's like a forest insect and disease crime scene investigation on it, and start at the top of the tree on the ground and hack our way through the bark and look at what beetles are in there with Bill Shop present, and try to get an idea how those trees are being impacted, and if we have the ability to leave some of them. There are a couple that are definitely on the large end. One of them is right on the street. That one to me looks like it's gonna probably die. It looks like it's that the crown is progressing in brown needles over time, but there's another one on the hillside just across from it is very big, and it doesn't have a lot of dead at the top yet. So I don't really want to have to cut that one down, but we also don't want to leave thousands and thousands of beetles pouring out of trees and attacking neighboring trees once they hatch, which is probably around some point in April or early May. And then the last thing on the list for that project is I've got Grayback scheduled to come in starting the Wednesday of next week and start cutting and piling and hopefully burning the slash if it's a burn day. in the cities will just go in and start the cleanup process as soon as possible to both open up the trail and get rid of all the slash that'll be left behind. All
Chris,
right,
I
on
got
to
a quick question for you. Was there a cost to the city for that? And if so, how much? Or is the value of the salvage, is that gonna offset the operational costs for the removal?
Right, so the value of the salvage is not much. It's, the logs aren't actually going to a mill per se. They're going to a firewood site out in White City. He does have a small mill there. They might mill some of it as more like niche market lumber. But by and large, it'll probably all mostly go to firewood. So prices for that, not good. We are paying $4,000 for the operation above and beyond the value of the wood.
And that's for how many total trees? I'm just trying to get a figure of like,
Yeah.
cost per tree or cost per acre.
Depending
'Cause
on,
a lot of money's been spent on those acres on past management. So this will kind of be the final management until we go back to early Cyril.
yeah, yes and no. There's planted trees on that hillside that have been there for going on 20 years. Some of those, and we've underburned in younger plantations, like in Unit C that we stopped and talked in on the tour with young pines planted. So we could be going in and doing underburning. I think we will wait until we're out of drought conditions. In fact, I really feeling like we should pause underburning in the lower watershed and any stands with significant pine until we're out of this drought, because it's just tempting fate too much with all the bark beetle activity going on to weaken any trees right now. I do have a couple of units I'm thinking about that are primarily Doug fir that we could burn, but so the cost, back to the cost, Luke, I don't know exactly how many trees it's going to be until we figure out whether those trees that are partially green are going to go. But assuming that most of them do, we'll probably be about 50 trees on the city and about 25 on adjacent properties. So somewhere around 75 trees, 3 to 4 log truck loads.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And you sent a letter to city council about this too, right? Okay.
Yeah, I
Maybe
sent an
it's-
email to a council a couple weeks ago now, approximately, just to give them the heads up before everybody in the community started hearing about it, so that they could answer questions or concerns from citizens that are lobbed their way.
And I sent that to the commission, so they.
Oh, that's
know
right,
what-
and Sil forwarded. I copied Sil on that, so she would have it, and then she'd send it on.
Cool, and that kind of covered what I was wanting to get with my letter to city council anyway, and so it felt like the letter I was talking about writing at previous meetings would have been redundant, so just to put a bow on that, I felt that Chris's letter was sufficient to kind of cover what I wanted to do on that, so I'm not moving forward on my letter.
One other point I'd like to make for all of you, and this is preparation for moving forward as we talk about climate change. As we've been exploring this site and the whys and so forth, why did it happen? Number one, it's well within the operating sphere of the Western pine beetle to do exactly what it did in this situation. It is an agent of disturbance out there in forest ecosystems. It does a lot of benefit by creating snags, creating openings, a lot of pluses in terms of ecosystem services. It doesn't seem to mind that we have homes around. It does what it does. So that's one thought. But I think a larger one is that I went out and did the estimates of basal area, put in 9 plots, and just to see where we were at in our management. And we were below the lowest recommendation that we typically give for management to protect stands from western pine beetle. So we had done everything that we possibly could do, given professional standards of the day, which tends to think we're starting to move into a little bit of unprecedented territory. That's the issue. And we can talk more about that at another time in other meetings, but it's been happening. So challenging issue.
Okay, I think I can get mine done pretty quickly. It's pretty short and maybe seem elementary, but I'll let you decide. And if I could share screen. That's what I'm looking to share. And so you can see that. And okay, well, here's our first page then, is right there. Okay, let's go back. Sorry, I am really blowing it. Okay. First page, what is forest planning and why is it important? You can't really read that, and I'll go through pretty quickly. And this was written for the Forest Service, but I think it applies here. It sets the overall management direction and guidance for the forest, for the entire forest. It's used to identify the broad vision at a forest-wide scale. It identifies areas suitable for certain activities. And most importantly, in this part anyways, does not direct site-specific projects like the CROCIN. So we might have identified that this sort of project is possible in this area, and where it meets, where we need to do these kinds of projects to meet our management goals. But a forest plan would not include this project, that it's covered at a broader level. So we're right on there. It's a foundation for every decision. So we should always be asking ourselves when we're making decisions going forward is, does it meet the forest plan? That's one of Frank's sayings, and he's right on, because that's our direction and we should be answering that according to that. This Ashland Forest, it belongs to the city, and everybody gets a say so on ultimately the managers make the recommendation. The Forest Lands Commission makes a recommendation, and the city is the ultimate decider. And so that's what it is and why it's important. And I put this little thing up from the Outdoor Alliance group that it's becoming more important to more citizens all the time. They're paying attention to this. They have access to the internet. They have access to everything we do. It's all public, and they're realizing that the best way to get involved is to get involved. And so they're, at the end, it says it's not that hard. Sign up with us and we'll help you look at forest plans and what it means to the resource that you care about. In this case, it's Outdoor Alliance, but you can bet there's groups looking out for everything. There's Friends of the Spotted Owl, there's Friends of the Barred Owl, and they're all interested in forest planning. So that's important to the public that owns these lands, and it's important to us. I'll have to apologize because I came up and grew up in the Forest Service, where we had pretty rigorous planning by law, and it was very complicated and very specified, this is how it would be. And so I had certain expectations going through this, and I'm going to apologize in advance that, that's not realistic to think that we could do that at the level that we are. It can be really complicated with many steps as shown on the left. And I don't know exactly what forest that was written for or what, or it can be very simple. Like for Guatemala, they have 7 steps that includes actual project planning for them. There's all kinds of plans. Like I said, Forest Service, they call them the land and resource management plans. A lot of them were done in the 1990s. They were only meant to be effective for 15 years, and only now are some forests getting on to revising their management plans, including the Rogue Siskiyou. They're woefully behind on revising their management plans, but maybe us doing ours will stimulate them to get that going, and the public will ask them to do that as well. I just showed some examples here. Even, the long-term forest plans, that's by Scotland, they, and a lot of countries with important forest resources have forest plans. And then the states have forest action plans, and Oregon has one. And it was written in 2010, revised in 2015. And it's a result of the Cooperative Forestry Act, was passed by Congress and signed in 1978. And basically it tells the USDA Forest Service to work closely with the states to get statewide assessments. So it identify the threats to Oregon's forests, from development, loss of forest products, into the industry, tree mortality, wildfire, etc. And a lot of our GIS comes from these assessment projects. It takes advantage of an economy of scale, because the city of Ashland couldn't afford to do this level of assessment, yet we have it at our fingertips. I think that's in order to, their mission is to conserve, protect, and enhance. I'll put this PowerPoint in our shared documents, but the point I wanted to make was that there's a lot of valuable resources that comes from the state, and the state does work closely with the feds, and the city works closely with the feds, and I'm always pushing for more, and that will always be the case, that we could always do more, but we're doing a lot, and we're doing a lot more than others are. So I'll say that. This required compliance. There's federal laws, state laws, and Ashland municipal codes. I ran out of time, and I'm no expert, but you can imagine there is a slew of things that Chris and Marty have to comply with. And everything that goes into that plan needs to meet federal law and state law and the Ashland Municipal Code, and the plan is a place where we can boil that all down and make sure that we're complying with those things, and so that when we go to implement the plan, we're in full compliance. And it can be overwhelming, everything from Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, filing state harvest plans, even for the Krausen project, things like that. And then the municipal code, if the city says this or that, that's why Marty's blowing his, he's taking a deep breath, because, oh man, this is a lot to do. Okay, that's my 5-minute professor hat. on forest planning. It is important, and what we're doing is really important. So let's do it. That's it. And stop the share. And there we go. And 6 minutes to spare. Does anybody have any more questions about anything we talked about?
I thought I'd just point out, just going back to our quick discussion about community outreach and things like that. I remember like 10 years ago, Chris and Marty, we made a list of like all the possible things that this commission could do at the time to reach out to the community, and we had a lot of debate about those. And so, you know, if anybody's interested in looking at that list, I'm sure I could find it, and perhaps we could revisit it, spend 20 minutes looking through it and see if there's any low-hanging fruit that we want to bite off for the next year.
Yeah, Luke had a pretty good handle on that for a while there. Lisa scheduling the field trips.
Right.
I'm not sure what he had on that, but yeah, there was quite an effort at some points. Remember we had that watershed photo art contest, and we ended up with a big poster that had facts on the back that actually shrunk down into 8.5 by 11. Pokey McFarland won the contest. He works at REI. I see him over there. Hopefully he's still doing art, because he did some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think we'll all be glad when this pandemic's over so that we can do more stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I like to do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, I'll get these notes out when I can. And I'll send a note to Leslie about her schedule and her willingness to be vice chair, and we'll get back to you all. So, meeting adjourned.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.